I'm Alexis,
And I'm Kim.
and this is the first episode of the Whatcha Watchin podcast. And this week we saw Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Yes, we did.
So, unfortunately, we did. If that's any indication of how we felt. So, we are going to begin with just some thoughts, some first impressions, spoiler-free content, just sort of a general review. And then we will do a big giant spoiler warning, and then we will get into the details of what we thought about this movie. So, Kim,
Mhm.
right off the bat, how did you feel about Quantumania?
I went in with hope. I went in with so much hope. I go to each Marvel movie. I have been there since 2000. What do we consider the starting point here? 2005?
2008? Is
It
it
was
8?
eight, right? I've been there. I've been there each time. I show up, I give them my money, and I give them my money. And walking into this, like I said, I've liked the last two Ant-Mans. They're simple, they're fun. Paul Rudd is charismatic. They hook the heart. They feel good on the heart and the spirit. This one didn't work for me. And I think
Fully agree.
it hurt that much harder because I walked in there with hope. This movie, I said on Twitter, this does not feel like a standalone film. I feel like Marvel is losing grasp of what their goals are. Are they trying to tackle too much? This movie is so cookie cutter, shoehorned. It's a forced attempt in order to set up their goals down the road. They're using Ant-Man to set up the long run. Story be damned, character development be damned. They really don't care. They needed to start this story. This could have been anything. This could have
Completely
been
agree.
Guardians. This could have been Falcon. The characters really don't matter.
Yeah.
And
I think
it
what you said at the
hurt.
screening, when you said at the screening, we came out of the screening and you said, so they could have had Star-Lord, you could have swapped Ant-Man for like 6 other characters, and it would have been inconsequential to the
Mhm.
story. And I think that to me said so much about like this movie. It's just one of those things where it felt like we started where we began. It felt like we didn't make any progress toward a larger narrative. We didn't even really get a lot of character development or anything interesting in that area. It just sort of existed. It
Mhm.
was like it's chapter 87 in the 3000 chapter Marvel saga. Like it didn't push anything forward. It felt like a filler episode of a TV show.
It was the clip
Yeah.
show of Marvel. It was
Totally.
it, it was the Marvel clip show because what frustrated me was pulling Ant-Man out of the world that he's already. We've come to know this character. We've come to know Scott Lang. We've come to recognize the vibe, recognize the characters. They were so desperate. And whether or not was this a COVID film? Is this part of the reason? The fact that the setting is completely different. I don't think it's a spoiler to say we're completely in the quantum realm at this point. A lot of the supporting characters are missing. Scott is in a different period in life than he has been, and I think they were struggling as a result of this. Cassie's different. I kept saying at the screening, I missed Michael Pena. It's floating in a sea of nebulousness.
Mhm.
And the fact that they use this as an opportunity to set up Kang. I don't think it's a spoiler to say, right, that Kang is the big bad here. And if you're a Marvel fan, you know in 2025 we're going to get Avengers with the Kang saga. He's going to be here. This is our new Thanos. We didn't get Thanos like this to start.
Mhm. Mhm.
What's the point? What's the
Yeah.
battle? There's not even any. I've heard people say on Twitter, well, it's about the character development.
But what character
I didn't see
development?
any character development.
Well, and I think also the idea, like you said, this is not how we met Thanos. Thanos was a looming threat for a while before we ever really focused on him as a character. I think bringing Kang in, saying this is going to be the big bad, but doing it in a movie that feels very wheel spinning-ish, seems like a very weird choice, and that's how you want to introduce a huge villain that will be in multiple movies and a big part of this phase and all this stuff. And yet it just felt like the whole movie felt very anticlimactic to me.
Yeah.
It was just sort of like, oh, okay, like, well, here's some things that are happening and it doesn't really matter. There's no real consequences. And yet that's how we're going to introduce the bad guy of this next phase. It just felt like what a deflated way to do that compared to what they've done previously.
But it's so disappointing to say. Jonathan Majors was my MVP for this film. He was, I think, the high point. And then he's one of the hottest young up-and-comers we have right now. I did not know of this man's existence until probably November when Devotion, right? When that came across.
I know he was on what was it? There was like a Lovecraft Country or whatever on
that's
HBO.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. That was, I think, where I first saw him.
And I was not aware of him. And it's like, okay, he's Kang. He's he hit like gangbusters real fast. And you can see why here. This is an incredibly charismatic, incredibly powerful performance. And honestly, the film leaves him out to dry, and it leaves all of these performers out to dry.
I felt like they relied so heavily on the charm of Paul Rudd and on Jonathan Majors just having such presence. It was like, oh, well, we don't really have to make the story that good. The script just felt like a first draft, and it felt like they just were saying, well, Paul Rudd is charming, so we can just rely on that. Paul Rudd, his charisma will carry this. Michael Douglas is having a blast, not giving a shit, just doing whatever. Well, that'll be a fun thing people can get into. But it felt really low effort. And I think that's the part that's burning me out on Marvel, is it's feeling like there's lower effort by the day.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, I don't want to see something for 2.5 hours that's low effort.
I'll say it. This rivals Love and Thunder for me. I mean, this is down by Love and Thunder and Thor Dark World in terms of Marvel quality. This script leaves everybody out to dry. They try to tackle, I was trying to process this in my review. They are so desperate for these sweeping, powerful emotional moments that neither of them can manage, because Paul Rudd's charismatic, but he also needs good material to back him up. Catherine Newton is struggling throughout this entire film, and I've seen her a lot better. She is definitely a weak point here, but I won't say it's entirely her fault.
She's stuck with some of the clunkier lines for sure.
I mean, I'll save the one we really laughed at for the spoiler alert, but there are some doozies there.
I was very reminded of poor Oscar Isaac having to say, somehow it appears Palpatine has returned. Like that, it just felt like, oh, I'm so sorry that you have to do this. You're better than this. And I really feel like she got stuck with so many of those lines where it was those very first draft lines. And I just felt bad that she had to say them. And she was doing her best to try to sell it. But the line itself was something that was like, well, you're not going to save this.
It takes a lot for me to really hit the actors. And yeah, she was doing what she could, but this script does nobody any favors. And she is so young. She has not learned, like Michael Douglas, to somehow phone it in while giving one of the most fun, but I would argue a tremendously stupidly contrived plot point. And he could care less.
I loved that I felt like he gave this the level of importance that it deserved, where it was like looking at the script and how poorly it was coming together. For him to just sort of phone it in felt very appropriate. And I actually enjoyed that more than, other parts of the film, because I thought, well, he seems to be having a good time with this. And I wished in a way that they would stop trying so hard, and I felt like his level of effort was what was deserved for this project. I think as you were saying, they're trying for emotional moments, they're trying for exciting moments, they're trying for this villain introduction, they're trying a lot of things, but it doesn't feel like they're succeeding in any of them.
Right.
So I did love that he just kind of he looked like, hey, I'm an old man. I'm in the volume. I don't know what the hell's going on. There's gonna put some CG shit in all around me. Whatever. I cash a paycheck. And I
remember
was
Romancing the Stone. We went on location for Romancing the Stone. We did stuff. We didn't just.
He's like, I'm a real actor.
Yeah.
And I felt like I appreciated his level of not giving a shit, and that enhanced it for me. But I agree. I think highlights, I mean, Paul Rudd is charming. I think Jonathan Majors has more potential than this let him have, but you could see where he's got the skills. He could, if they really let this go, he could be a highlight of this phase. And I think for me, Michael Douglas not giving a shit was probably the thing I liked the most.
There was a level of meta that they also, and Ant-Man has shined with that meta quirky humor. They wanted to play in that. They were desperate to. There's a moment in the last few minutes of the film where it's like, yes, play into that, lean into this, because this is your movie. And this has been so much of Marvel in the last couple of, She-Hulk. There's few good examples here where they find it just too late, or they're too afraid to lean in and really commit where they would shine.
I think let's get into spoiler talk, because I want to talk about specifics in here and some of the things that I found either like insane fun or insane bad. So this is the official spoiler warning. This is the spoiler warning alert, spoiler warning. We are going to dive into Ant-Man spoilers. Now, just this movie is rather mediocre. You're not going to be spoiled. It doesn't, not a lot happens in this movie of consequence. So don't worry too much about spoiler. Exactly. There's no stakes. So if you are planning on seeing Ant-Man, I guarantee you whatever we talk about is not going to ruin it for you. But if you want to go in fresh, spoiler warning officially here. Okay. Let's get into this. I think for me,
why does this movie exist?
That's the real question. I just kept thinking about, the story circle, and then the hero arrives back at the place where he began, changed. And I was like, nope, just arrives back at the place where he began. And it's just like, we're back. There's no real, we've done nothing. We've learned nothing. We've achieved nothing. No one has died. No one has, learned a lesson. And I just kept feeling like, why are we even doing this film? I fully expected either Michelle Pfeiffer or Michael Douglas or someone to die in this, particularly some of the older cast.
Moment.
Yeah, and I was very shocked that it made the stakes feel even lower to have where, we're not even going to kill anybody off. And it also took a lot of the wind out of the Kang sails when it was like, he doesn't really do anything. And I mean, even like the inclusion of MODOK. Okay, we have MODOK, and that was the only sort of thing where perhaps we can have a character that dies, or perhaps we can have consequences or something, but it's a complete throwaway. There's no reason for MODOK to be in this film at all, let alone to have, a role where he dies, or to have something like, why are we bringing Corey Stoll back? Why are we introducing MODOK and then immediately going, never mind? It just felt like this whole movie just felt like never mind to me. Like, never mind.
The inclusion of MODOK was what really got me. And I will admit, listeners, viewers, I am not a huge comic book reader, but I come at it with a basic knowledge.
Mhm.
I have a basic Marvel knowledge. So
Pop culture
I would have
osmosis, you
I
learn
would have
about these things.
expected MODOK when was Baron Zemo in? Would
Yeah,
have
Civil War, right?
Civil War. I would have expected MODOK maybe there. I know we had the TV show going on. Why here? Why are we using this as an example? Why are we shoehorning that in? Why are we disrespecting Corey Stoll like this, one of our greatest living character actors at this point? He's brilliant, and he gets stuck with the most horrific, nightmare fuel inducing character design as MODOK. That just he's cool looking when like the faceplate is down, but then they're so proud to lift up like the faceplate and show this
It was a real
face, which is
theme of like messy CG for me in this.
yeah.
And
Well, and
no
that's Marvel
disrespect
right
to the
now.
CG artists because they are
They're
horribly
doing what they
treated
can.
and doing what they can, but I think it's just the direction to me of some of the final battles. There was interesting stuff going on, like the sentient buildings that are fighting in the final battles, or
Mm-hmm.
even the arrival of all the ants and all these different things. It was like, oh, this could be something, but it just was a big giant mess. It felt like if you just threw a bunch of glitter at your face and tried to like
Mm-hmm.
focus on an individual piece. Your eye had no idea where to focus. There was nothing really guiding us. The geography of the locations of where they were fighting, it was like, well, he's over there, but where is that in this wide shot? It just felt like, having seen something like RRR where the action is so grounded, we can have that intro sequence to Aluri Sitaramaraju where he's fighting 10,000 people, and we can still know exactly where he is in that crowd, and we can focus on him even though there's this giant swell of people that
Mm-hmm.
are attacking him. It was like, wow, we don't have that at all in this. And I think Marvel has struggled with that for a long time. You could even argue that the final battle in Endgame is just sort of a big
Yep.
brown sludge mess. But I don't know why it is. They have good CG. They can do it. All the elements, things are rendered really nice. It just feels like the CG it feels like a direction problem. They're
Yeah.
not they're not quite sure what they want, and maybe that's because notoriously they start rendering the CG and setting up the fight scenes way before they even have a script, and I think that certainly factors in because there isn't really a vision or anything going into that. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the CG just disappointed me so much. I thought, well, at least in Marvel, maybe you get a big battle scene that looks cool, or in the quantum realm,
Yes.
but it was just nothing. And down to even the creature design. It felt like, oh, these are the rejected creatures from, you know,
Star
Rise of
Wars.
Skywalker. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like, well, we took a little bit of Rise of Skywalker, we took some ideas from like the crappier Men in Black sequels, and we just mushed them together and sprinkled in a little Guardians of the Galaxy, and there you go. It's a movie, The Quantum Realm. But nothing felt connected, nothing felt like it made any sense for why it was there. They used some of the characters, like the guy that didn't have holes. That was a joke that they ran into the ground. And I felt like, oh,
Sure.
so we're doing Love and Thunder again with just
It
running a
worked the
joke
first
into
three
the
times.
ground. Yeah. And then it was like, what if 7 times? And that's too much. I can't, like, I don't know why this is so challenging for them at this point when they
Mm-hmm.
clearly know how to do the formula. Has the formula gotten so tired, or are they phoning it in a lot more? I don't know what it is about it. It just, man, it was so disappointing. And it's one more in a series of disappointing, mediocre
Yeah.
Marvel movies. That's the part I think that bummed me out the most.
I mean, this follows what on the heels of Wakanda Forever, which worked for different reasons. It had its own struggles, but you're dealing with a completely different situation over there. I can't even think of what the Marvel before that was. Doctor Strange, maybe? I can't remember the
I
last
think
time we
so.
saw Ant-Man. But this script, there's an interesting world that they've built, but in the excitement, hurry, terrible script, they don't want to explore any of it. It just kind of drops you in, and this has got a very weird structure because they're sucked into the quantum realm within the first 10 minutes of the movie for various reasons, and we see much more of the quantum realm than we've seen before. We see creatures and tribes and alien races and really interesting stuff. The film makes a horrible use of William Jackson Harper as a telepath. There's fascinating idea there, some humorous moments, but he's a joke. He's a joke and a plot device. And I'm having to look at her, I'm going to assume her, on IMDb. Katie M. O'Brien is Gentora. Fascinating character. Did they say her name once? This tribe is sprinkled in there, dropped in because we need a plot point, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was so interesting that we have this idea of there's a whole society going on in the quantum realm. There's these people that are rebelling against Kang. There's all this stuff happening. There's, all these different races and creeds of people. There's Bill Murray for some reason. And yet we have no interest in looking at any of that. We're only here to just be like, hey, there's set decoration. There's scenery. They have no real thing to do, but we're going to give them names and we're probably going to make action figures of them, but they really have no purpose in the story at all. And it felt like
they might get a spin-off series at some point.
Honestly, it felt like, well, we're making more characters just in case we want to dig into this well a little more. But there was no purpose for any of it. It reminded me of sort of, you see these sort of Star Wars characters that exist just to be, peg warmers in the Target toy department. And yet, like, that's what we're going to make a big point in our movie. We're going to have that be something that's significant in this movie. It feels like Marvel is not like coming apart at the seams, but it feels like they're running out of steam in a big way.
Yeah.
And they're just going forward because they have to, but they really don't have a lot to say at this point, or they're afraid to say anything in their movies because this is all a setup for the next movie, which is a setup for the next movie. So no movie can have any payoff or any real like climactic moment or any stakes because we can't do that yet. We have to do that 6 movies from now. And I don't want to watch 6 more movies until you decide to have a plot that's interesting.
I don't even know how we can say they're afraid that they're set up because there was no setup here. They had shoehorned in so much exposition with Kang, which I won't lie, I would watch a short of Michelle Pfeiffer and Kang hanging out in the quantum realm for 30 years. I mean, he's a far better, scene partner than Bill Murray, who her other scene partner. We're supposed to believe she was keeping time with in the 30 years that she was down there. But nobody dies. Nobody really goes through any real struggle. I mean, Scott gets his ass kicked once, but beyond that, and he's not going to beat Jonathan Majors in a fight, but there's no universe that Paul Rudd beats Jonathan Majors in a fight.
I was glad that they didn't make us try to believe that he could beat Jonathan Majors in a fight. I thought, well, I'm glad you're going with that he's getting his ass kicked because in no universe would I buy this.
But I would have at least hoped, because when I figured out Kang was going to be the big bad, I'm like, so this can go one of 2 ways. And I was expecting them to do the more interesting thing. I was expecting this to end on a downer. I was expecting like an Empire Strikes Back kind of downer. He gets away, he wins something because he's going to come back. We all know he's going to come back. And what do? Ant-Man and the Wasp defeats him because Ant-Man doesn't actually do anything by himself successfully for the entire film. He feels like a supporting character in his own film.
Completely
And then
agree.
as in the last 5 minutes, Scott's walking in a cute meta moment that they should have leaned into more. Scott realizes shit's not quite right. Kang said this about, Kang said if he doesn't get out, things are going to go down. People are going to die. He didn't get out. Did I just make a mistake? And then in this moment where he could they could make it really interesting, he just keeps right on walking.
Just brushes it off. And it's
Just
like, that's the whole
brushes it off.
movie. That's the whole movie of, well, I just made you sit through this movie and you watched all this stuff and we spent all this money. Does it have any consequences? Nope. Just keep on walking. And it's so sad that that's where we're at with this whole thing.
Scott has kept learning the same lessons the entire the only development we have is Scott in the last scene having a pseudo birthday party for Cassie because he's missed some. Hasn't he learned that lesson in each lesson? Movie has had Scott realizing that he's not the best dad. He's not the best dad, and he's kind of shafted his daughter, but he seems to forget that between each film. And then we had so much plot or so much character going off screen. We're introduced to Scott. He's written a book and he's just turned into a sellout, which to me felt really strange with this character who's been incredibly genuine, incredibly pleasant, he's gone through stuff. He's made mistakes, and
Scott's been a character with a lot of heart this whole time.
Yes.
And then it was strange to have where they're basically saying, oh, he just sells out. He constantly cashes in on being an Avenger. It just felt like of all the characters that are going to just cash in on being an Avenger, this feels like a weird one. But they just needed him to do that for this movie. And it's sort of,
they needed a storyline for Cassie. They wanted to make Cassie the woke Gen Z, bleeding heart, and who's going to play off of that? Scott, it's like, no.
Yeah, it was weird. It was really just a weird, it felt like this could be any character. This could be any actor. This could be you could swap any person for this and make it not the quantum realm, make it something else, make it whatever, because it doesn't really matter that it's Ant-Man. It doesn't really matter that it's quantum anything. It just felt like more setup for everything. And then the post-credits scenes were
those were a waste.
I literally started laughing when we go and we see all the Kangs. I said out loud, "Welcome to the Citadel of Ricks," because I thought, well, that's a better version of what this is doing. And look, I'm never going to object to hundreds and hundreds of Jonathan Majors's running around. That's so many abs. But
that's like a 1500 pack.
Exactly. I have no objections to that specifically, but I feel like, okay, so it diminishes the impact of Kang when he's one of so many Kangs, and we can get so silly with and there's goofy Kangs. I half expected to see a Kang in the background that looked like Rick Sanchez, just for a little joke. And then I think the post credits with the teaser for Loki basically just felt like a Disney Plus commercial. And
Stay tuned for Loki season 2.
Yeah, and I'm so tired of it. It's that whole thing. It reminded me of the Doctor Strange post credits with Clea, where it's just like, hey, this, you don't know anything about this, or the one with Harry Styles. Hey, here's a character you're going to meet later. Stay tuned. Although I don't know that we'll ever see Harry Styles or anything from the Eternals again. I feel that that's probably buried forever at this point. But it's that idea of, we're going to introduce something, we're going to give you no context, and the whole point is it's a thing that you recognize, so comic book fans can go, look, I know that thing. But it doesn't really lead into anything. At least with Thanos, all those post-credit sequences of Thanos kind of were building up to the gauntlet and building up to something. But now it's literally just somebody popping in and going, hi, I'm here too. And it's just there's no, it feels like we're just doing episodic TV.
It's hold for applause moments at this
Mm-hmm.
point. Oh, look, oh, Brett Goldstein will be Hercules at, when he's done filming Ted Lasso. It's
Mm-hmm.
when will we get to Hercules? I mean, they're plotted out through 2028 at this point. There's Bill Murray in this movie was the biggest example of hold for applause.
Yeah.
Why was this character in there? It's a throwaway scene. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you poor Michelle Pfeiffer has to pretend like she was attracted to that for 30 years.
She was trapped in the quantum realm with Jonathan Majors, and she
And she
started
chose
sleeping
Bill
with
Murray.
Bill Murray. Come on.
Why is he walks in and it's shot literally like, hi, I'm here.
Yeah.
I am in Marvel now. And
Yeah.
you can just imagine these actors going, hey, got any room? I need a few.
Yeah.
I need a day and a half worth of work. Got something for me?
It reminded me of in Jay and Silent Bob when Mark Hamill shows up and there's literally like a title card that says like, hey kids, it's Mark Hamill. It's like that was the Bill Murray cameo in this.
Clap. Yeah. Expect clap.
Mm-hmm.
It's wearing so thin.
Yes.
Let's get to the plot point with the ants. Michael Douglas and his ants. So we learn early in the film, for no reason, Cassie's techie now. I can't remember if Cassie was techie in the previous films.
I don't think she was really anything in the previous film.
She just kind of did stuff. Now she's sciencey. And they built like a techie ant farm, which happens to get sucked in the quantum realm. And then we hear nothing else about these ants. They just disappear. When they need something to help take on Kang, Michael Douglas suddenly stumbles upon these ants who have lived 10,000 years of life. And we have like Ant Atlantis, they've been developing and they're smart ants now because they've been sucked into the quantum realm and have lived life and seen stuff. It's the ants who really, Michael Douglas and his ants.
I feel like every time Michael Douglas shows up and just kind of shrugs and goes, ants, that was my favorite thing in the entire movie, to be honest with you. Like Michael Douglas just kind of showing up, looking like, this is where I go. Okay, and what's my line? Just ants? Okay, great. Like,
did I hit my mark?
Yeah, he stands on his mark and he goes, ants, Scott. And I'm like, love it. I'm here for it. He doesn't care. He knows how dumb this is. And he's embraced that. Everybody else is attempting to capture the sort of Marvel vibe of past movies. Michael Douglas sees this for what it is and goes, hey, ants, and it's wonderful.
Michael Douglas came out and said, I will do this for one more movie, but then I want to die. And this is how it came across in this film. He wants to be done.
He's like, can you please kill off this character? I don't want to do this anymore.
I show up, die.
I say ants, I throw a disc, something shrinks made out of CG, and then I leave.
Him and Janet do more heavy lifting than Hope and Scott.
Yeah.
Hope and Scott are like neutered in this film.
And the whole movie can't figure out who's the main character. Yeah. Who does it want to focus on? And that's, again, problem with the script. Is this a movie about Scott and him being a good dad? Is this a movie about Hope? Is this a movie about Cassie learning responsibility? And also, I would like to talk about it. So they must have some serious STEM high schools in the Marvel universe because she is like the 8th brilliant science-minded teenager. Why are none of these teenagers skilled musicians or really good athletes or anything else? Every single teenager in this is like Peter Parker, science genius, making an Iron Man suit kind of thing. And I don't understand why. Again, it makes it where none of them are distinct. We just had Riri Williams,
same thing.
Be the same thing. It's like we constantly find a plucky teen who happens to be an untapped genius who's, created amazing technology with nothing but a garbage can. And it's so tired that none of them have any character.
I hate to say it, it's Disney brand feminism.
Absolutely.
It is Disney so desperate to check those boxes.
Yes.
We're going to have a plucky teen girl what do girls not like? science and math. So
Yeah.
we're going to show girls it's cool to like science.
She's going to wear Converse and make
It's
a quantum
shallow.
reactor thing with some paper clips because, girls get it done.
It's just marketed to be, on the Disney princess t-shirts. And
Definitely.
so much happens off screen. The hand of the script writer is so, and poor Jeff Loveness. This is his first feature film. This guy, he's a comedy writer. He's an animated TV writer. Rick and Morty to Ant-Man, that's kind of a jump. Did we not rewrite him? Did we not look at this script? So much happens off camera. They seem to be filling script holes with just the cast. There's so many times where, oh, how will Hank get out of this situation? Oh, cut to Janet doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
Return to shot, Hank's figured it out.
Yeah.
Or Hope has figured it out. They don't actually show you anything.
There's a lot of not wanting to figure out how we get to a plot point. We just need to get there. So we show it happened off screen. And I noticed a lot of telling instead of showing. There's a lot of, well, this is why you should be afraid of Kang. And let me give you a story about why you should be afraid of Kang. But we have Jonathan Majors. This is the introduction of Kang. How about you just show me why Kang is a monster? Mm-hmm. How about you just show me what he does? And then even in when we get to later battles, Kang just uses MODOK as like his muscle. So again, it deflates Kang. It takes a lot of that power away from Kang because you just feel like, so he doesn't beat up people on his own. He has MODOK do it. We don't see him do like a genocide. We hear about it. It's just, it completely deflates him as far as being important or significant. We always get those kind of single movie villains where it's kind of a mid-tier villain that comes in and goes, I'm going to take over the world. And then, the Avengers come, or 2 or 3 of the Avengers come and defeat them. And that's the movie. But that's not how Kang should feel. In Phase 1. Exactly. And that's not how we should feel about Kang if we're setting him up to be the big bad of the whole thing.
Kang should not have been the big bad for this film. This Marvel has how many years? 60, 70 years of comic book history. There's a rogues gallery there, to mix my comic book metaphors. You don't need to cut your story in half by doing this and to waste your actors, because they hit their runtime giving Jonathan Majors villain speeches. We don't see much of anything from him until the very end, but he talks a big game. He gives plenty of powerful James Bond villain speeches.
Yeah, I think that plays into having no stakes. The fact that you don't have a throwaway villain that the hero can defeat. Really, you don't really have any of those things that make each individual movie in the early phases feel like their own story. When you have Captain America defeating the Red Skull, we have stakes, we have a villain. At the end, we know the hero's going to win and the villain's going to lose. But with this, to have where you have your villain and you just say, well, we can't kill the villain because this is an Ant-Man movie and that's got to happen 7 movies from now. Yeah. But we also don't have like a mid-tier villain. Well, maybe MODOK. Well, maybe whatever. And if you want a movie to feel like there are stakes, you can't have where at the end we're in the exact same position we were in at the beginning. MODOK is what we've accomplished here. MODOK's been defeated. Congratulations. That's the movie.
MODOK was defeated for what purpose? And then to turn his death into a joke? Yeah. I mean, dare we mention the fact that Catherine Newton has to say, don't be a dick.
What's the moral of the story?
What's the prevailing message to MODOK? Don't be a dick. And what does that do? That convinces him to turn good. Yeah. After all of this stuff, and Corey Stoll being the actor that he is and the powerhouse that he is, his face is turned into the only approximation I can make in Doctor Who. There's a gigantic character that's just skin stretched on Cassandra, skin stretched on posts. He's this killing machine who's annoyed at Scott and pissed off at Hank, and Hope spurned him. And yet, don't be a dick. is what convinces him to be good.
It's not annoying to the level of Thor Love and Thunder. It's
No.
not awkward and just like poorly executed to the level of Eternals. So it's not that it is objectively horrible. It's just I'm so tired of mid-tier, just mediocre. I think that's what it is. It's for a movie that costs this much money, this should be better. For a movie
I was disappointed.
Yes, absolutely. It's disappointing. You just feel like, I know you can do better, Marvel. Why aren't you doing better? And I think that's the part that bothered me the most. If they were going to push this just straight to Disney Plus, that's what I would have done.
Should have.
Because it doesn't feel like enough for movie theaters.
I keep hearing they're trying to turn cinema into comic books. So you don't necessarily have to read each and every, you don't need to read each and every comic book. You don't have to see each and every film. But by that logic, why are we putting Kang in for this entire film? Why are we setting it up like this? People are going to skip the Lokis. They're going to skip the Moon Knights. I mean, I bet the people out there forgot Moon Knight was even a thing. You should be funneling your A-list talent, your A-list money. Your films should be your saving grace. They should be your powerhouse. And this was dismal. I mean, they should be ashamed of themselves. By the more I have percolated on this film after writing about it, the more annoyed I've gotten with it, to be perfectly honest. I had hope. And they stomped on it like Kang stomps on Ant-Man in the last, fight scene.
So I think it's fair to say both of us would probably not recommend this film.
Save this for Disney Plus. It'll be there in a few months.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel the same way. I think this is one of those things. It's not objectively horrible, but it's not worth a trip to a movie theater to see. It's definitely a Disney Plus watch.
This is a Disney Plus, passing event. Yeah, no.
Absolutely.
I can't recommend this in any reality in the quantum realm. In the multiverse.
I'm feeling such burnout for it. Our friend Leo from Geekly Goods asked us about what Marvel movies are you excited about? And I just was like, I can't, Leo. I don't want to do this anymore. It's lost so much of the magic, and I think that's the part that is the most disappointing about all of it. I am hopeful that they'll get it back on track, but I'm also just like, well, maybe DC will be where things go now, because it feels like Marvel's really fizzling out, at least for me. For the past few movies.
I might get DC, hatred on this, but James Gunn, I will trust whatever he does. So I am excited to see where that goes from here. And goodness knows we need a reset in both of these comic book universes. Maybe that's exactly what we need. Here's hoping Marvel can keep up.
Absolutely. Well, I feel like we're about at time.
We've gone full circle.
We've started out with, okay, so Ant-Man, and then we've ended with maybe DC will be good. Which, if you asked me 5 years ago or something, would I ever say those words? Probably not.
Nope.
But here we are. So, thank you, everyone, for watching, for listening, for joining us. And we're going to keep this up. We're going to do another one. We're going to keep going with this, mostly because we just really like talking to each other about movies and TV and pop culture and stuff. So please join us for the next one. Subscribe and follow us on the socials. We'll put all the links and everything in the description. And we look forward to seeing you again.